be recorded.
Mayor Horn,
Here.
Alderman Kittle,
Here.
Alderman Lindell,
Here.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Here.
Alderman Montello,
Here.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Kraft. Here.
Alderman Volkert, are you on? We cannot hear you. All right, we'll continue. So you have a quorum. All right, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? United States of America, the Republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Can you see that Ron is on? Okay. Adoption of the agenda. We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, carried. Public comments. Does anybody wish to make a public comment? Note that the council chambers is empty other than staff and council members. Consent agenda.
I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll
There's a
second that.
motion. All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. And new business, 8.1, the new, excuse me, New Richmond Cemetery Plots Survey.
Good evening, Mayor Horn and City Council. The first item on our agenda this evening is regards to creating a preterm pregnancy area at the Richmond Cemetery. This was presented at the Public Works Committee meeting recently this fall. The proposal would be to have this surveyed over the winter months, and this is a kind of a partnership with Halos of the St. Croix Valley. We do have both, I believe, Stephanie and Mariah available on the call, participating virtually tonight. If anyone has any questions for them. The recommendation from the Public Works Committee was to move ahead with the surveying of this section. We would still have to bring back information about what the sizes of those lots will be, what are the prices, those sorts of things. But this would allow us to begin the survey work while we currently don't have snow on the ground. So that may change tomorrow, but we'd like to be able to move forward with that here yet this year. So I know Alderperson Kittle is on the Public Works Committee. I don't know if you had any comments from what was discussed at the last.
I just think it's a phenomenal thing, a phenomenal cause. It'll be a great location for it. Visible. It'll be something that's needed out there. I think it's a good idea. And then also the $2,500 for the engineering and the setting up of the plat will be coming out of the money we have in the cemetery fund. We have about 15,000 in there or so, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so we have, so this would come through the cemetery funds. We have some funds available for, in the cemetery fund, both for perpetual care and then in this case, more for the, for somewhat of a capital project, so to speak. So, so it would come through the cemetery fund.
Yep. I just think it's a good idea. It's nice thing to do.
So is it just an area for us reading through here markers? Is there also a possibility for internments if parents want?
Yeah, and I think that's something we'd work with them in just in terms of, would these be more for cremation? Would it be internment? And again, just in terms of spacing and whatnot. So we know kind of the general area that it'd be located, but we'd have to work out those specifics yet.
I think the bulk of it would be for cremations and
Yeah.
remains.
I agree. I think it's a great idea. I know if, that's why I asked about interments versus some, just a marker, but are we allowing interments?
I think they anticipate that option
Yeah.
in the future, but it's.
This is Maria. Yep, sorry if I could interrupt, but we do anticipate in the future having some interments and different things like that and offering some spaces for physical burials. One of the biggest things about Lullaby Lane is having a memorial stone there to commemorate those early term losses that parents might not have their babies to bury. So that's kind of what you see in the second page in your agenda, just about the Lullaby Lane project vision. Those are some representations of where this has happened in other communities that have a paver path and a memorial for those that can add a paver path then to a Lullaby Lane. So if you don't have your baby to bury, then you would maybe add a paver if that's something that your family wanted, and then a memorial stone to designate that it is Lullaby Lane and it's in memory of those babies that have gone to heaven. So that's one of the main things that we envision for Lullaby Lane, but then having actual burial spaces for those that have their babies, for casket burials, for cremations, and then Steph knows a little bit more about kind of the differences between Minnesota and Wisconsin. In Minnesota, early losses are recognized as lives, where that doesn't happen in Wisconsin. They're considered medical waste. So we hope that one day the legislation will catch up in Wisconsin, which we'll work towards, and we could maybe do some group burials out there as well. So Steph can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Mike. I'm going to make a motion that we approve, and I don't want to cut out the conversation. If Halos wants to talk some more, they sure can, but I am making a motion that we move forward with the platting of an area at the cemetery that would be dedicated to Halos of St. Croix Valley. I think it's a great idea.
I will second that. Third that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, any other comments that you wanted to make?
I just wanted to, I'm Stephanie, the early loss coordinator for Halos, who kind of started the early loss program. Early loss meaning we support those from 0 to 20 weeks of gestation, miscarriage, which like Maria pointed out is sadly overlooked in Wisconsin. And I just think that this is I'm so thankful that you motioned to approve it. I think it's really big for our community because like she mentioned, it's different in Minnesota where by law, they will respectfully dispose of any baby, no matter what gestation. And here, as we're trying to get that going in our own town, we've made some strides in the hospital getting information so that when people leave, they're feeling validated, like, and they know someone's there to support them. Because there's not a loss, sometimes that still doesn't happen, even though we have resources in there. So our Lullaby Lane project will be something that we can show as a community, that the community is behind those who validate the lives of their babies and feel as if they're real and that their community is behind them. So I just wanted to say thank you, because it does mean a lot, especially to moms like me who went in and just left not knowing if you could think, if it was okay to think if it was a valid life or not. So we have high hopes for the project.
Yep. Any other discussion? And if what I'll ask you guys is, obviously we can work with the state legislators. And if you've worked with them already, if you've got something you're working on, I'd be happy to write a letter to help the cause. You know, and maybe even bring it back in the future for the council to, so it comes from the council even.
I think the council would be 100% in favor of that also. Or I know I would. I can't speak for anyone else. But I think that's a very good cause, noble.
Thank you. That means a lot. It's definitely part of the vision we have for Lullaby Lane is getting some of our legislators involved. So knowing we have that support, we'll be back to ask you for that too. Thank you so much.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Approve the surveying of this plots there. Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Kraft. Yes.
So we still don't, Ron, if you're on, give us a sign,
Any sign.
any sign. So that motion passes. Item 8.2. And so thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
And-
all so much. Have a great night.
Can do to help you out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And 8.2 is design services for 2021 street and utility projects.
Mayor and council, at the last work session meeting, there was discussion about possible capital projects for 2021. At that time, the council indicated that there was at least some interest in moving forward with some of our street and utility projects, that we didn't want to defer those if there were projects that we felt were going to have to be done at some point. So we reached out to SEH, our engineering consultant. They prepared a proposal for engineering and design work. This wouldn't necessarily commit the council to constructing these improvements. Obviously, even if we were going to construct this a year or two from now, we would still have to do the engineering and design work. So they put a proposal together. This would be for South Pearson, which is near if you're familiar with the Catholic cemetery, and then East 8th Street, which is near the Richmond Middle School. This runs north of the middle school tennis courts and parking lot. The estimated cost for their design services would be $87,120. And again, they would begin this work this month in November, with the hope that if the council did want to bid these projects out, that we'd have the engineering and design work completed over the winter. That way we could bid these out in the spring if desired.
And refresh my memory. So it's just from SCH. Do we work with other engineering firms?
So they are, SCH has done all of our engineering design work for our street utility projects. The reason why it's listed on here as a supplemental letter agreement is basically this is an amendment to their existing contract. So they've been our contractor for our street utility projects for several years. It's something if the city were to want to go down and seek a new person, we could go out for proposals. But typically they've done all of our street and utility work for several years now.
What we did in the public works maybe 4 years ago, is we kind of interviewed 4 or 5 different engineering firms. And we kind of based that on what their expertise were.
Yep.
So we had MSA do some certain things. We had ACH do some certain things, kind of in what they were expertise on. And SCH was always kind of the road people, traffic people. But SCH does some and MSA does some, and there's, I think, 2 others that do.
Yep, we've used
Other
Cedar
stuff.
Corporation,
Cedar
we've
Corp.
used others. Yep.
Yeah, I don't have anything against them. I'm just asking.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, this is Mike. I'm offering a motion to approve the supplemental letter agreement with SEH Inc. for design services for the proposed 2021 street and utility projects, East 8th Street and South Pearson Avenue, in the amount of $87,120.
All right, there is a motion to approve the design services with SEH for $87,120. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that.
We have the second. Is there any discussion?
Rand, where would the 87,000 come from? This year or next year?
That would come from 2001 or 2021, sorry.
It would come from 21.
Yep,
Okay,
from
thanks.
21s, and it would be part of the financing package.
Yep. Right. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion? All right, call the roll.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft. Yes. Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
and I did reach out to Alderman Volkert, but did not get a response. Alderman Volkert, are you on the call? I don't believe so.
Because he's probably trying to listen on the phone and so he can't.
Oh,
I don't know, maybe he's got his phone muted and he doesn't realize, I'm not sure. But that motion does pass. Item 8.3 is the Parkland 1935 115th Street.
Mayor and Council, this item is regards to the proposed disc golf course. For the last couple of years, citizens Jim Zakowski and Karen Smallage have raised over $38,000 from local businesses, citizens for a disc golf course. Earlier this year, the park board approved interviewing design consultants to help evaluate locations for where this disc golf course could be located. And then once the location were to be approved, they would do the actual course design. We had 5 individuals or teams interviewed. We selected Tim Mackey, lives in Minnesota, has designed several courses. He was in Richmond on a couple of occasions this fall, and the preferred recommendation based on his opinion and the one that was supported by the park board at their last meeting is actually city-owned property near the compost site. And there's ample room. It's property that's already owned by the city. It's not really being utilized. Several hills, trees, there's a pond back there. A portion of it is also over an old landfill area. And the park board voted at their last meeting to recommend this location. However, since it's not currently park property, we wanted to bring this to the city council for the final approval. So I believe Jim Zakowski may be on the call. Otherwise, Kirk Kittle is here as well if you have any questions about the disc golf course itself. But the recommendation from the park board would be to allocate the property located at 1935 115th Street for park property. Obviously, the actual course design would be subject to approval by the park board in terms of where there'd be parking, how would the course be laid out, all those details.
Jim, do you have anything?
Yeah, we worked with Tim Mackey on this. I've been with him a couple of times at the site out there, and Craig was out there in the park board, and they really liked the site. And Tim Mackey said this is going to be a destination course. He said it's going to be the best in Western Wisconsin and in the East Metro. He says this will bring people in from out of the area, which probably, will help our restaurants. And if we have tournaments, it helps the hotels and, things like that. But he was really excited about it when he saw this compared to the other 3 or 4 sites we looked at. Craig stated it really good. He said, this is phenomenal area here. It's got everything. It's got rolling hills. It's got woods. It's got ponds. It's got grasslands. And when we went out there 2 weeks ago, we started staking out where the holes could go, preliminary. And Tim was really excited about this. And actually, we're going to go out there Wednesday again and do some more further work on that. So, if you have any questions, but we've been working on this for 2 years. Right now, we have 38,000 that we have now. We've got about another 8,000 or 9,000 committed. And once we get the approval from the city council, then it can go out there and raise further future funds. We're looking at probably raising somewhere between $60,000 and $75,000. But now that with the park board unanimous approval, and then with the approval of the city council, we can move forward and raise more funds for this. But like I say, we've been working on this for over 2 years, and this is a beautiful site. I was really impressed with this site. It's going to be phenomenal. Any questions for me?
Good job.
No, I first of all, just want to thank Jim and Karen for all the hard work they've done fundraising with this. It's pretty unbelievable. And we all know how Jim is with fundraising. He's the fundraising whisperer. He does a great job, I'll tell you. And I think we actually found just a perfect location. I think once it's staked out and the locations of holes, and it's going to be pretty amazing out there, and it'll be fun. And it doesn't have to be just for disc golf. We could have some nature trails out there. We could have a walking path around the outside of it, just a mowed area. We could have kids with mountain bike type track out there. We could do a lot of things out there. We could do things in the winter. We could do some sledding stuff, and maybe the pond could be for skating. I don't know. It's a really cool area that's never been utilized at all by the city, and I think it's going to be a great area and a good addition to the city.
Jim, this is Mike. What are you anticipating the cost of the disc golf course is going to be?
We're not completely positive, but we're thinking somewhere in the range of 60,000 or so. But if we can raise more, it'll make it, better. But we're looking at 2 tee pads on most of the holes. So we had for 1 hole for advanced and 1 hole for, beginners. So we might have 2 pin placements also. And these tee pads are concrete. That's going to be, part of the cost there. And right now, we're charging $1,500 to sponsor a hole. Then your name will be on permanent signage on the hole itself, stating your name, business, whatever it is, and where the fairways are, that type of thing. So right now it's like I say, we have 38,000. We have another 5,000 from the hotel tax that was approved last year. And we have, like I said, about another 9,000 that we have committed that once we get the site here, that's what a lot of people are waiting for. Where is it going to be? Just like the time when the high school is going to be built the first time. Yeah, we want to build a high school, but we don't know where it's going to go. Well, it doesn't fly. But now we have a site which the park board really liked too. So now I can continue my fundraising because now I'll have a permanent site here. And it is a beautiful area. If anybody wants to go out there, I'll take them out there, or otherwise just go out there yourselves. It's beautiful.
Mr. Mayor, this is Mike. I'm going to offer a motion that we approve authorizing the use of this particular property as parkland.
You're on the call.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve this. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to say officially to echo something that Alderman Kittle said. Thank you, Jim Zakowski and Karen Smallage, for your work on this.
Ditto.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other discussion? I'd call the roll.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert. I think he was on and we lost him again. Alderman Kraft,
Yes.
Yeah. Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
And that motion passes. Item 8.4 is resolution 112-001.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just saying thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have this, we can design it over the winter, and hopefully we'll have it ready by summertime. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So, item 8.4 is resolution 112-001, Whispering Prairie First Edition Public Improvements.
Mayor and Council, this is regards to the recent completion of a new city street in the Whispering Prairie development. This is on the eastern city limits out on County Road K. Prairie Road was extended this summer. The second lift of asphalt was completed last week. It was inspected by city staff. Approval of the resolution begins the 1-year warranty period for those public improvements. So the recommendation from staff would be to approve resolution 112-001, accepting the public improvements for the Whispering Prairie First Edition.
I would make
This
a
is
motion
Mike.
to
I'll make
approve
that motion.
resolution 112001 with the public improvements for Whispering Prairie.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 112001. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
No.
Alderman Volkert,
Here.
Say yes.
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 Very good. Thank you, Ron.
You're
That
welcome.
motion passes. Item 8.5 is the hiring freeze. Noah.
So Mayor and Council, earlier this summer, as part of our financial sustainability plan in wake of COVID-19, we had approved a hiring freeze. We had a retirement earlier this summer in our utilities office that has not yet been filled. For the 2021 budget, that position is budgeted through the utilities to begin January 1st. All of you are familiar with sometimes the timeline it takes to post a position, do interviews. So we would be seeking authorization to begin the hiring process this fall for that position, even though that individual wouldn't yet begin this year. Really wanted to bring it to this group. That way they're just from a communication standpoint, that way you didn't see a job posting and you thought, well, wait a second, I thought we had a hiring freeze in place. So we wanted to bring this to the council for authorization to begin the hiring process for that position later this fall.
No, I would make a motion that the city council should consider authorizing staff to begin the hiring process for the utilities office. Customer service representative.
Echo going on. So is that on our side? Is that her side? It's on her side. So Carrie, there's a huge
sorry.
echo. There we go.
Oh, there's an echo.
Not anymore.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so I would make a motion that the city council authorize the city staff to begin the hiring process for the utilities office customer service rep.
All right, there's a motion to authorize the hiring of the utility position. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just want to offer this. We had a conversation at the last time we were all together talking about the city council and its overview responsibilities relative to the utilities commission. And this is a prime example of why it makes sense. We have language in here that talks about the proposed utilities operating budget supports filling this vacant position. Anybody on this call familiar with what that budget is? No, of course not. So it would just be good if there was amplified communication of what our action before supports. It's interesting that we're making this decision when, you know, based on the way things are currently, this is a complete utilities decision.
All right, any other discussion? All right, call the roll.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft. Yes. Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Right, and that motion passes. Item 8.6, authority to temporarily close, reduce hours, or limit services in municipal buildings.
Here in council, this is an item that I thought was timely, just both with winter weather approaching, but also I think more importantly with COVID-19. We've never really had a clear policy in terms of who has the authority to close or limit our lobbies or to change hours or things like that here for a temporary period of time. The library board has a policy in place that, you know, they can change hours, they could go back to curbside services if needed. They don't necessarily have to have a library board meeting. They authorize the library director and city administration to make that decision. Similar to the school district, Olson has the authority if they made the call to go or to make a change. He has that authority, and obviously there's trust in him that he's using this information from public health, from his staff, et cetera. And so I did want to bring this forward to the council for discussion tonight. In the event that we look to perhaps close our lobby here at the Civic Center for a temporary basis. We've had, I would say in the last 3 weeks, we've had 34 individuals that have been quarantined, either due to a positive case or close contact of someone. And so it very quickly can change your staffing schedules. And it's one of those decisions that obviously we would inform the council before a decision were to be made. But it is something that locally we're seeing some of the libraries going back to curbside. Even here in town, some of the banks or credit unions are now closing their lobbies again. And I would say even if you're in City Hall today, we had 2 people here in the building. So at some point, it's a concern for the safety of employees, safety of the public coming into the building. Obviously, we want to be open as much as we can from a customer service standpoint, but some of these things can very quickly change, and suddenly you lose a whole department. And so I wanted to bring it to the council just for clarity on that issue.
So what you're recommending and asking is basically to go out and write a policy and come up with a policy. Is that correct?
Well, I think we would want a formal policy in writing, but I also think that even between now and the next meeting, if circumstances required, that city administration could make that call.
Okay.
But yes, we definitely want something in writing, and obviously there's sample like from the library that we can mirror, but
yeah.
Knowing that there won't be another regular meeting until December. If you've been following the cases that we've seen here, currently in St. Croix County, we're up to almost 1,500 active cases. We're at 1,469. The last time the council met, I think we were in the 800s. When you look at the number of cases, basically new cases since that time, that's over 1,000, because some of those people also recovered. So just in the last couple of days, we've had over 250 new cases just in St. Croix County. And something we're seeing here in our offices, obviously a lot of the schools are being impacted as well. And really looking to, if need be, to be able to make that call without having to call a quorum and have a meeting, but to make that quick decision to say, in 24 hours, we're going to this step if necessary. Similar to, the school district had to go virtual. Patrick Olson could send something out tonight and say we're going virtual effective tomorrow, or a snow day, for example. It's more of an operational decision, but obviously it does have big implications if we were to do that. But not just for this building, the library, the front lobby for the police department or the fire department, if needed, to be able to work with those respective departments to make that call.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. All I would ask is just communication prior to anything happening like that. Not ask for permission, just to communicate, because a lot of people will communicate with us to say, hey, what's going on? And for us not to know would not be good, but an email to go out and say, hey, I got to do this. I don't have any problem with that. And then have something in writing as a policy in the future would be good too. But
yeah,
a temporary, if you need to do it, just tell us.
This is Mike, and actually I think we got to put more teeth into that, Craig. I think that if we're going to give, city administration the ability to shut things down, then I think it's not unreasonable that the council would meet within 72 hours. We can certainly do that via phone and formally approve that action. That doesn't mean they can't shut it down, but it means that the council has an opportunity to weigh in on that. So I think it would be appropriate to put that in there.
Sure.
You say the motion and I'll hear it.
Okay, well then I'm going to make a motion that we give city administrator, or in this case it's our interim, but our city administrator, the ability to shut down. Sorry, and I can't get the writing on this big enough for me to read it and talk at the same time. to do what they're asking for with the stipulation that if a decision is made to close city services, and we're specifically talking for a COVID pandemic type situation, I don't think there's something else that applies, that the city council would meet within 72 hours, virtually whatever, to basically give the approval to that action. So that the action doesn't have to wait for 72 hours. The council would have to meet within 72 hours, that's 3 days, and say, yep, we approve of what was done.
So he could make the decision, or she could make the decision to close today and then call a meeting within 72 hours to weigh in on
That
it.
is correct. That is correct.
I will second that, if Michelle has any of that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. And Michelle, do you understand the motion?
I got it.
Perfect. So there's motion and a second to authorize city administration that can close COVID, snow days, that type stuff. If it's COVID, I think is where it comes, the 72 hour comes in. Snow, probably not a big a deal. Any discussion?
Well, how do we feel about the notification prior to the decision? Just through an email to say, here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you're not going to ask for input. You're not going to, I don't want to give my input. I want to trust your or her decision to do whatever's best for the city. But what Mike is saying, within 72 hours, we should somehow meet.
Have a meeting, but yeah, communicate out, hey, this is what's happening in what. And
Craig,
shut
to
down.
qualify your statement, I think that the communication of the council should be concurrent with the decision. So as soon as the decision's made, yep, we're going to close her down, then the notification goes out to all the council members, and that really starts your 72-hour clock, if you will, that the council would need to formally endorse the action.
I'm fine with that.
All right,
It's,
with that understanding, go ahead, discussion.
Hey, Noah, I just have a question for clarification. Is the 34 you mentioned before, is that across city staff?
So that's collective cases in the last 3 weeks across several departments.
Okay, thank you.
That's not current as of today. That's a cumulative number that have been impacted over the last 3 weeks.
It just more or less to show the momentum. I get it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Kraft? Yes. Alderman Kittle?
Yes.
Alderman Lindell?
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier?
Yes.
Alderman Montello?
Yes.
Alderman Volkert?
Yes.
And that motion passes. So item 8.7 is the drug detective vehicle replacement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As we talked about at one of the previous council meetings, our current drug detective vehicle is a 2014 Chevy Impala. It has had some mechanical issues of late, and as you recall, or most of you recall, when we implemented that program over 4 years ago, we thought that the squad car for that position should be traded out probably around every 18 to 24 months. We've currently had it for over 4 years. So council did authorize the police department to go out for bid on that. We received a number of bids. We asked each of the local dealerships to provide us with a couple of different V6 SUVs that were used off their lots. We received bids from Johnson Motors, Bernard's, Northtown, and Johnson Ford. After reviewing those different vehicles for, kind of what our needs were, we were looking for something that's discrete, nondescript. The numbers came in, and staff recommendation would be to go with a 2018 Jeep Cherokee Limited from Bernard's, Northtown. The purchase price would be $22,999. They offered $5,000 on trade for the Impala with a total purchase price of $17,999. We also, as we talked about at the last council meeting, a $4,000 allotment for equipment removal and replacement and installation for the current, from the current vehicle to the new one. Potentially there would be some additional lighting that would be needed. And then the cost of this vehicle would be from carried forward funds from the 2017 hailstorm damage. There's currently $33,297 and some change in that fund. So we would be looking for approval to move forward with that purchase. Rayanne, did you want to touch on anything else on that?
Craig covered it all, unless there's additional questions on the funding source.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I said it, Craig covered the funding source, so it
Okay.
would come from the carry forward funds, unless there's additional questions on that. Otherwise, I didn't have anything to add.
All right. Does anybody have any questions?
And the Jeep Cherokee is your preference?
Yeah, I think that suits our needs very well.
I would make a motion to accept the offer of the 2018 Jeep Cherokee with the purchase price of $21,999.
Craig, it was $22,999.
$22,999.
All right, there's a motion to go with the Jeep Cherokee for $22,999. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
You have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Abstain.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Right, and that motion passes. Item 8.8 is the police patrol vehicle replacements.
Yeah, again, Mayor and Council, at the last council meeting, we did request to go out for bids due to the timeliness of getting those bids in and actually taking possession of the vehicles. As you recall, our two main duty squads are now pushing 115 and 120,000 miles as we sit today. They're still running 24/7. So we did go out for bid to replace the two Ford utility SUVs that we currently have with Fords. We put bids out to our local dealership, Johnson Ford, and then the state bid through Ewald's, which, as you recall, we purchased through in the past. Johnson Ford did step up on the trade-in values with $9,000 and $8,500 respectively for the two trade-in models. With a purchase price of $34,431, the difference would be on one vehicle, $25,431, and the second vehicle would be $25,931, and that's our recommendation would be to go with Johnson Ford to replace those. And then also along those lines, some of the equipment, when under the previous police administration, every time we purchased a new vehicle, we purchased all brand new equipment for that vehicle, light bar, siren, the rear partition, all those things were brand new in every car. We've been reusing those now since I took over to try to save money, but we are starting to have some issues with siren controllers and things like that. So our recommendation is to accept the Johnson Ford bid for the 2021 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicle with a purchase price of $34,431, and on both of those, and then accept the trade-in values of $9,000 and $8,500 with a delivery date after January 2021. We'd also recommend purchasing the 5-year 100,000 mile extended warranty for $3,890 and the maintenance package of $3,429 for each vehicle. We really felt like those have paid off in the past. Making sure that our maintenance costs throughout the course of the year are limited. And then we're also looking for an allotment of $12,000 per car for graphics, equipment removal, and installation of the new equipment that'll be needed in these 2021 vehicles. And Rayanne, I'm gonna let you talk about where the money's coming from, because I was confused by it a little bit too.
Okay, sounds good. So on this, these are both vehicles that we had talked about or have been discussing as part of the 2021 capital improvement plan. Based upon those three options that we had covered of how to utilize surplus funds, the recommendation from staff would be to utilize surplus funds, which we still project those to be to $400,000 to $500,000 by the end of 2020, to cover the expenses of both of these vehicles. So the capital improvement plan that will be brought forward on Monday outlines utilizing those surplus funds for vehicle, smaller equipment needs, and the financing in 2021 would be focused on street and utility projects, those longer lived asset life type of vehicles. So we still, based upon our October projections and things of that nature, we're still on track to be meeting that $400,000 to $500,000 surplus. So at this stage, I feel confident that that's where we will end at the end of the year, so that we would have those surplus funds available to purchase both of these vehicles.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, this is Mike. I make a motion that we approve the bids to purchase those 2 squad cars from Johnson Ford, with the service contracts, maintenance contracts as well, as it's laid out.
All right, there's a motion to purchase the cars. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
You want to also approve the allotment for the fix and
The 12,000 per, I assume that's part of the motion, Mike?
part of the motion?
Yes, yeah, just that, as the request is made, yes.
Yep.
Hey, Rayanne, do you have a grand total on that?
I believe it's on the memo here at
142.
Thank you.
Just a guess, so don't worry about it.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft. Yes. Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may just throw a shout out to Lieutenant Veronica Kaler. She's worked very hard on both these squad car bids. It's time consuming, and I think she kind of leaves no stone unturned on these, and I appreciate her help on it.
Very good. So that motion passes. Item 8.9 is the Heritage Center request, the Beebe building.
Mayor and Council, I met recently with Paul Mayer. Paul Mayer serves as the current president of the board for the Heritage Center. They've expressed an interest in some items in the Beebe building, including, they're noted in your packet, the section of the tin ceiling, 2 wooden doors, 2 safes, 2 stones, one with the name Beebe, the other of 1912, that are on the facade of the building. Beebe Chapel sign, which is on the outside of the building. They'd also like to do some further investigation into a painting that's near the stairway in the hotel portion. And some of these items would be used for their U.S. Marshal building that they're in the process of constructing. Their goal is to have that completed next summer. Some of these other items they'd like to display, they'd like to have an exhibit at the Heritage Center, kind of on some of those founding families of New Richmond, some of those more iconic families, including the Beebes. They also had some concerns, just the age of the painting and the conditions of the current building, that it may be best to move that painting out of there right now, just as the condition of the roof is failing. Probably not the best environment for that painting. I did speak with the city attorney. Obviously, when we go through, typically we're dealing with surplus items that are equipment or supplies. We declare them as surplus property. We go through a bidding process. Nick felt that this was a little different in that the building is planned to be demolished. We would want to speak with the Gerard team. Obviously, they have a intent for a project. We'd want to make sure that there was no no desire on their end to own some of those items. But really wanted to bring it. When I spoke with Paul, I said I would bring it to the council for discussion and just wanted some direction. Some of these aren't immediately pressing because the building isn't coming down yet, but they'd like to know for their own planning purposes. And in some of these items, like the safe, they'd have to find a way to get the safe out of the building. Same thing with the painting, find a place where would this painting go, and be able to do some of the background research to see is there value in the painting, what year is it, who painted it, that sort of thing. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Mayor, this is Mike. I'm going to offer a motion that we approve the Heritage Center Board of Directors request for these items that have been identified. I just want to add, in our memo, talks about the city should also confirm with Girard Corporation that they don't want any of these items. As far as I'm concerned, I would only offer them to Girard if Girard was going to incorporate them into the new project. Considering the terms at which we would be transferring that property to Girard, I would not make these items available to Girard unless they were going to incorporate them into their project on that site. So that's my motion.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. Motion and a second. Discussion.
These will be for public viewing at the Heritage Center. So everybody that wants to see these items, that'll be at the Heritage Center.
Yeah, so some of these,
not private property or anything like that. It's going to be all at the Heritage Center.
right? So some of these would be the actual construction of the building, like the ceiling or doors. Those would actually be incorporated into the building. Like for the safe, they'd like to have one of the safes actually in the U.S. Marshal office. The Beebe sign and that sort of thing. They have those on display there for the public to be able to view and learn from.
Yeah, it's an attempt to preserve some of the local history. I think I applaud them for doing this. I presume they've gone through the building and this is the only things they've seen. If something else comes up, I would have no issue with Heritage Center. It's kind of a limited list, but if there's other stuff in there to be preserved, why not? And I agree with Alderman Montello's idea of, if Girard wants some of this stuff, if they're going to incorporate it, okay, that's one thing, but let's preserve what can be preserved and let's move on. That's my 2 cents.
No, I agree. I just want to, as long as they're public property.
Yep.
As the city actually went down there and looked through buildings, through hotel rooms, through see if there is anything for any value.
Yeah, our staff we're in the building every few weeks just for checking for maintenance. Personally, I've been through the full tour of the building. There's sections that are much worse condition than others. I think, as Paul's mayor spent a lot of time going through the building. He felt these were really the only items that they would be interested in. I think something for further discussion about, when that building would be raised, if there's any other materials similar to what they did with the school building. People have a way to salvage something, and I think definitely something we can look at.
I would encourage Girard Group, if they did rebuild in that same spot, to use anything from that building that could be used. Because I think that whatever goes in that spot should look like it's been there for 100 years. That's just been my opinion from day one. So I think it would be nice to have any kind of piece of EV property that was there in the past to be there again. That's just my opinion.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft. Yes.
And that motion passes. Item 810, the fire department policy update. Noah?
Yeah, this is just an update item for the council. Included in the proposed 2021 budget that went to the Fire Advisory Board, there was funds included for some additional health screenings for firefighters. So physicals, chest X-ray, a prostate cancer examination, blood testing, EKG, etc. Testing would be conducted by MedCompass in early 2021. So that's already incorporated into the proposed 2021 budget. As part of this, there's also some policies that go with this in terms of how frequently is this testing done, is this testing required, or portions of it optional, and who has access to these files, how are these records managed or maintained, and so staff will be working with the city attorney to develop some of these policies here in the coming days and weeks. So just wanted to make the council aware of the current status of that. We have a meeting scheduled this week with the city attorney to begin working on these.
Is it fair to say that
Go ahead, Mike.
this proposed, or this discussion point really is a benefit to individuals who serve as part of our volunteer fire department, and I appreciate the work that they all do, but not necessarily a point of making a connection between what they're doing and these screenings. These screenings are health screenings that are provided to them as part of their, boy, that's a rough word, but as part of the compensation. It's a benefit of being on the fire department.
I think for the testing, I think there's both a benefit to the firefighters. I also think there's a benefit to the city as well.
And what is that benefit? And again, not that I think it's a bad idea, but I think you're right. There's a number of issues. If I was a volunteer firefighter, I'd like to know what's going to happen to my health information that I've done through this quasi-public setting. I'd be very concerned about how that's handled. So I think it's right for you to address that. But what is the benefit to the city specifically?
Well, and I think part of the reason why this is now becoming more of a national best practice, for fire departments across the country is really that, when we're sending our firefighters into a burning building, we want to make sure that they're not going in with some underlying health conditions that they aren't aware of. We'd rather address those early on. I think of a high school football player who's 16, can't step foot on a basketball court. Some of these issues, and we have a 45 or 50-year-old firefighter going into a burning building. We want to make sure that they don't have other health conditions that may impact their ability, other issues in terms of workman's comp claims or things like that if someone were to be injured. And ultimately, I think it goes back to caring about the safety of all of our employees. And so I do think there's a benefit beyond just the firefighters as individuals. I think it's also why, for the city, we do health screening for our employees as well. We'd rather catch those things early on before they become more serious down the road.
Well, and let me just add to that, Councilmember Montello, that much of this discussion was born out of some of the concerns related to the Robo fire investigations, and part of this is baselining so that if there are future health concerns, we will have a baseline. The city will have a baseline and a metric from which to evaluate whether anything that happened during a firefighter's time with the city had any bearing or relation to that firefighter's work with the city, with its fire department. And so you're correct. It is a significant benefit to each member of the fire department to have this testing done for themselves. But it's also a benefit from the city's perspective to have a baseline understanding of the health condition of each particular firefighter in the event that there are some claims down the road, and that the city is then able to go back and substantiate or address the particular claims that are made from at least the date that the testing has been completed.
I appreciate that, Nick. I guess as I'm reading through the memo, you know, I see your analysis on there. And I can just imagine that employees who, I'm going to say that in a different way, get drug screened at work, you know, that could become an issue. So I'm all for doing whatever we can to provide the greatest safety for our firefighters. That's an easy one for me. I just wonder about some of the other sides of this. That's all.
Well, the other thing that I would add is that this is a cooperative effort with the fire department. So, you know, obviously there were concerns coming out of the investigations of the Roble property that spurred the discussion. But there's also been a lot of work that's been completed by the fire department on these best practices, and a lot of the best practices are coming directly from the department. And that the goal is not necessarily to simply impose a system that the city thinks is appropriate for testing, but to work cooperatively with the leadership of the fire department to make sure that they're also comfortable with the process that we undertake, and that they do feel that there's benefit. So this is really a two-way initiative and a two-way effort, and we hope through collaboration that this will be win-win for both the city, the fire department, and its firefighters that volunteer and serve on the force.
I have a question for maybe Nick. Are there any other departments within the city that this may affect, i.e. the police department or the ambulance or anything else?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know. Do you know of anybody else that?
We do some testing with for police, our electric department. You know, we'll do some tests in terms of hearing or vision. But
I mean this specific. I mean this specific investigation.
So obviously there are some officers that would have been on scene and would be in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, we dealt with Mr. Roble on so many different levels beyond fires. You know, I know tonight's conversation is around the fire department policy update, and perhaps once they kind of get that hashed out and we see what it looks like, maybe I think what you're asking is would our officers benefit from the same type of things?
That's what I'm asking.
And I think that perhaps once the fire department kind of works out those bugs, we can perhaps jump on with them and evaluate it at that point. But I think right now, you know, the concern is clearly at this level tonight, but I think the conversation should probably happen. So
I'm just curious.
Fair question.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a fair question, and remember the firefighters are asking for this process. Frankly, we have a different structure between the fire department and the police department. The police officers are unionized, and that probably has some bearing as to how we work through the process with the police staff. But, you know, certainly if there are opportunities to provide benefit to others that were involved in a certain, in a particular situation, you know, we'll take a look. But I think step one is really kind of getting this fleshed out and working through it with fire to make sure that we've got something that works for the city and the fire department.
I wasn't questioning the process. I was just want to make sure that everybody's involved and needs to be involved.
Yeah, this is a work in process, obviously. I'm just curious if folks are if you are a member of the fire department, you're signing up that you are going to, you know, is somebody going to have the ability to opt out? That's all. The concern that some folks might have over what happens with their confidential medical information and how that could be used. That's really kind of the basis of my question. So obviously there's some work to be done here. I understand the intent. There's some stuff that obviously needs to be worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are good questions, and certainly they're on the agenda for discussion with Chief Vanderwist and the leadership of the fire department as well.
Okay.
We just wanted to make sure the council's aware and part of that discussion. That's why it's on the agenda.
It's just an update tonight, so not seeking any action, but just wanted to let you know the status of this and that we were working on the policy piece to Alderman Martello's point.
Any questions from anybody? All right, hearing none. Item 811 is the shared ride taxi partnership with St. Croix County.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight I sent out a memo for everyone's review regarding the shared ride taxi partnership that we're proposing with St. Croix County. About a month and a half ago, representatives from the County Health and Human Services Department contacted the City of Richmond and wanted to see if we would partner in their 8121 grant for assisting disabled and elderly getting rides through our rideshare program. So they apply every year, the county does, for an 8521 grant, which is different from the grant that we apply for. They get funds for up to 5 different programs. I currently have those 5 programs listed in your memo. One of them is a partnership with the City of River Falls Rideshare Program. So we're basically mimicking that program this evening. And so I kind of asked the question of the county, why were we not asked before if we wanted to partnership in this grant with them? And basically they had stated that there was no partnership before because there is a van that's allotted to the City of Richmond that they give rides to elderly and disabled folks to doctor's appointments and those types of things. And basically during COVID times, and they feel throughout the 2021 year that they will not be allotting that van, in which they would like to then partner with us through our ride share. So what does this mean for the City of Richmond? I contacted the state of Wisconsin regarding our shared ride program grant that we apply for. I contacted the City of River Falls and I spoke with the county on numerous occasions. Basically, it's just a couple of things. One is the county puts our information into their 8521 grant application, similar to the City of River Falls. They offer us $7,500 a year. So in the 2021 year, they'll offer us $7,500 to put towards our local share of our grant funding that we currently get from the state. So when speaking with the state, they said the only requirement that we had that's different is that we need to make sure that we're letting the county know exactly how many disabled folks and elderly folks are riding in our shared ride taxi on a monthly basis. So we would have Runnings create a report for us that gets sent to the county. That's our reporting responsibilities. And then in our application under our shared ride portion of it, under the city's portion, we would just need to state that we are receiving $7,500 from the county under our application. So really very simple, very easy. We would actually be getting the $7,500 in quarterly payments from the county based on the reports that we give them. We would let our shared ride taxi folks know that we would want to make some priorities for elderly and disabled folks in our shared ride program. And we have a contract for your approval underneath the recommendation. So any questions, I would like to field those.
Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, this is Mike. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the contract with St. Croix County for the 2021 year based as it's been proposed.
All right, there's a motion to approve the contract with St. Croix County. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
So Beth, would this improve services at all? Or would it just be a larger area to be able to use the ride share?
Actually, it wouldn't improve, it wouldn't change our hours or our service or anything. So that's what's interesting about it. What they're asking us to do is make some priorities for folks who are elderly and disabled when they're calling in. So basically, if there's 3 people that are calling in at the same time, they obviously, shared ride already asks them what their age is and their destination. And if they have any handicaps, so they know what van to send. We're just asking them to prioritize those rides.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
And that motion passes. Item 812 is community recharge.
Okay, I'll take this one to start with. Michelle Scanlon, Jennifer Rickard, and I met this past week to discuss an item that was left over from the last city council meeting regarding the community recharge program. So in your packet this evening, I have put together a little synopsis. So what we all know is that we approved at the kind of the middle of the COVID time, we approved $65,000 of funds to be spent within our community, regenerating about $185,000, which we invest into our community. So with those funds, I want to just do a quick recap of what we've already done, what we're going to finish doing in the 2020 year, and then some ideas for some funds, which is really what we wanted to chamber with the partner with the chamber on in the 2021 year. So we've done the Chamber Bucks program to the tune of $35,000. And as Maria Behrens discussed at the last meeting, it was sold out in just under 2 days. The Happy Kids Backpack Program, we spent $2,000 on that. That affected about 856 people, and it completed 200 backpacks. We did the New Richmond Strong Gear with about $6,464. Decorate Your Front Porch at $780. The Takeout Battle at $1,700. Find Mayor Fred, which, by the way, Mayor was pretty popular. We spent $2,300 on that. And we bought the masks for $2,370. Yes.
I mean, I'm sitting at the gas station and hearing someone scream, "We found Mayor Fred!" Kudos to the library for that program.
Yeah, Jennifer and the library gals did a great job on that program. And we had, I think it was right around 44 participants. So that was pretty exciting. There were people out in our parks, in the businesses, just looking for Mayor Fred. It was pretty exciting. So we've completed that, and we'll be giving out, I think Jen is working on the prizes here within this week to hand out to those kids who found Mayor Fred. So what we have left in the 2020 year is 5 Lowe's food shelf donation at $1,500. That'll be going out in the next week. We have the Holiday Recharge or Giving Spirit, which was $5,000. A new program that we had a little bit of extra funds left over, we're calling Merry and Bright, the Couch Potato, a book club contest, and a Lego fun contest. So those are the things, and in your packet, those are a little bit more detailed as to what those will be. And we'll try to spend that money, the $65,000, all in the 2020 year. And kind of looking forward into the 2021 year, we were asked to think up or gather maybe some more ideas on what would be beneficial to our community and really regenerating some businesses or some investments into our local businesses. So we realized after the last meeting that there may be around $10,000 of an investment that would be available in the 2021 year. And what we would like to create is a grant program for our local businesses. There would be 20 $500 grants that we would be able to have businesses submit to us. And we would ask the businesses to give us ideas on how they would like to regenerate their $500 into our community. For instance, the 100th person into your business gets a $50 gift card. Or if you buy $50 of this, you get a $25 gift card. Or, whatever you do here, you return here and you get some money. So we would ask those businesses how they could regenerate it. And we would do that on a first come, first served basis, up to $10,000. The second thing we would like to do is request funds, again, from our local tourism committee. And we would like to spend those partnering with the Chamber of Commerce. So really, is it another Chamber Bucks program? Is it a program, something different that we work together with the Chamber on? Is it partnering with local hotels to say, if in fact you spend 2 nights in New Richmond, we'll give you a $25 gift certificate for a local restaurant or a local gift shop. And so with the money from the tourism committee, if they so choose to do that again, we would like to partner with the Chamber of Commerce on those. So our recommendation would be to move forward with the 2020 recharge programs as outlined in the packet, and then move forward with discussions with the Chamber on the 2021 programs.
So Beth, this is Alderman Kraft. My understanding is that the $10,000, the additional $10,000 investment is money that had originally been earmarked for downtown facade grants, but we asked staff to come up with other ideas about how we could reinvest that in the community.
That's exactly what we looked at, that $10,000 coming from the facade money. I know that Alderman Montello last time had said he felt it would maybe be more important to try to regenerate those funds into the entire community. And so that's what we look to do. And that's what we're looking to do with this kind of one-page grant application to get 20 grants out there for $500 each.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we approve spending the remaining budget dollars for 2020 and then reallocate that $10,000 for 2021 programming.
All right, there's a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
I'm sorry, who had the second on that one?
Oh, I second that.
My apologies. I should have
I
made
did
that
it too.
announcement.
That was me.
No, that's my fault.
Just keeping the peace sign. That second.
Thank you. Okay, calling the roll, Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that motion passes. Item 9 is communications and miscellaneous.
I just wanted to just publicly recognize Michelle, Christie, and all of the election workers. Everything went very smoothly last week. Very large turnout, as everyone's aware, but I just want to thank them for a lot of time and hard work that went into that. So, so thanks to everyone who helped play a part in that day, and as well as all of the early voting leading up to that day.
I have a question for Michelle. Michelle,
All right. Yes, I'm ready.
how many ballots did you send out for mail-in ballots? About.
Oh, I should have had every number with me, but we had we only had just over 100 that were not returned, and some of those people that wasn't returned because they came and voted in person instead.
Okay.
And so it was just under 2,500.
Okay. So every
I
ballot
can get you that
was
exact
asked
number.
for, so almost every ballot that was requested ended up voting. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had, about 5 days before the election, we were at almost 96% return rate. It's crazy.
Good. Thanks for everything you did.
My
Also.
pleasure.
And then
I now
follow-up
know
question.
why we only do these every 4 years. That's it. All I got in me.
Pandemic.
Was there any voting irregularities in New Richmond?
Nope. We were able to process. We had one ballot that we were not able to process from the time it was mailed back to us almost a month before the election to election day. The elector actually passed away. But there was not any ballot that was returned that we were not able to count based on an irregularity.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Any other communications? All right. Closed session per state statute 19.851C and state statute 19.851E. police union negotiations and consider request for tax increment financing for proposed development at 633 and 611 South Dakota Avenue.
I'll make a motion. We go into closed session, but can you advise me, are we taking a 5-minute break?
Correct. Yes, about 8:25, 8:26, we'll come back. So there's a motion to go into closed session. Is there a second? We have a second, and call the roll.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
All right, we'll go to closed session. Is there going to be a different number for them to dial back into? And Kyle will be sending that number out if you don't already have it.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Sure.
Because he's gonna.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Fred, the new dial-in will come in a new email.
Kyle is going to send out some information, I believe.
Okay, great. Thank you.